Renee Dinnerstein is a curriculum consultant in the New York City schools. She was a kindergarten and first grade teacher at PS 321 in Park Slope for many years. She wrote a piece for the E-Class instructional guide that was distributed to teachers soon after E-Class was launched. In that piece, she describes the ways in which E-Class informed her classroom instruction. So I thought we'd start by talking about what was most useful to you about E-Class.
So when the E-Class was distributed to us, I was one of the very vocal anti-E-Class people, because it was like one more thing that didn't have to do with my instruction. I knew what I was doing, and I had my classroom running the way I wanted it to be running. But I had to do it, right? And much to my surprise, when I did the alphabet recognition part of it, now, there were children in my class who I knew were struggling, and I knew that they needed help with that, but I was actually shocked at how many children who I thought knew much more about letters and the names of the letters and the sounds of the letters, but how many of them didn't actually know it. And that was incredibly informative for me. And because I was in the school where I was, where there was a lot of respect, I think, for teachers' judgment, I was able to take that knowledge that I got from that and create a whole big ABC study with my class and really focus in on that. So that was particularly helpful to me.
And that's described in the
And that I wrote about here.
Yeah, so I'm interested if there were any particular aspects of your professional environment that you would say helped you experience it as useful.
Of course, it was some years ago now, so I'm trying to remember back to what it was like. But I remember a meeting in the auditorium where either all of the staff or all of the early childhood staff were told it was described to us. But a lot of grade meetings where the principal was there, where we talked about it with the principal, where we talked about it among ourselves. I think that we gave a lot of time to it in our grade meetings. And I can very specifically remember meetings where we discussed the writing sample and how we were going to grade the writing samples. And we didn't all agree on it, and we had to really bash this over together and run it through and come up with something that we all agreed on. And so I thought actually that was good because we had a lot more communication as a grade through that.
Interesting.
I think some of the teachers felt more comfortable having that conversation than other conversations.
Interesting. The research that I've done describes the ways in which the teachers in my study came to see E-Class as being of very limited usefulness. So their perspective differs pretty starkly from yours in many ways. So I just wondered what you think might account for the difference in their experience and yours.
Maybe it had to do with the administration really opening it up to a lot of discussion. It sounded like their meetings, the way you describe it, was more you do this, you do that, you do that, you do that, and that's what you're going to be doing. And we didn't have this kind of meetings. The beginning, we did that at the very beginning. This is how we do it. And all of our other meetings were interpretive. How are we going to do this? How are we interpreting it? What are we, what is one teacher noticing that another teacher isn't noticing? How are we integrating it into the classroom? That's one thing that I did a lot of. Like I had a Pete's Chicken Center, and so I started that, so another teacher did that because it seemed to be working for me. And we had a lot more discussion that way, and I think that's what was very helpful.
It's interesting. Let's kind of fast forward to the current environment. So you're a curriculum consultant in numerous New York City schools. So first let's talk about, from that vantage point, what's your perspective on the strengths and weaknesses of the E-Class mandate, and then we'll talk about other policies that are currently in place about assessment.
I speak to the teachers a lot, and I can feel their almost hysteria about how much of their time is being taken away from instruction. So that's a really big thing. I also think that E-Class has changed a lot and from when I did it. And so you talked about this guide before. Teachers don't even know about this guide, and I think that if they did know about this guide, I don't even know if they could use something like this, because they have so much like pacing calendars and scripts that they have to follow that I don't know if like that they're finding this out about this group of children, if they could just kind of swing to what it says here.
But in terms of comparing the E-class mandate to the policies currently in place in New York City about primary grade assessment generally, or literacy assessment, any last thoughts on that?
I just feel like, there's not enough time put in for teachers to be able to use the assessment, and also not just to use the assessment, but to think about what aspect of this assessment is particularly important for their grade, their children, the needs of their children. It's just like we've got to do this assessment, and then it's finished, and then we go on. You have to do the spring assessment all over again.
And in here, you describe very eloquently and in great detail how, after looking through your findings from your E-class assessments, you make this determination that the alphabet, the letter names, and the letter sounds were something really needed, and you develop these beautiful ABC centers and this whole unit of study.
Right.
So would you see a teacher today as kind of having the discretionary space to do something like that?
No, I don't see that, and that's what bothers me. It's not the assessment per se that I'm opposed to, but when the assessment becomes a test as opposed to an assessment that drives instruction.
Right.
Now, it's different in each grade. I mean, what the needs are for each grade, and I still feel like, there should be other priorities in kindergarten other than knowing exactly where your kid is as a reader. Getting them ready to be readers and getting them into rich discussions and explorations and etc. That to me is what the kindergarten year is about. First grade, kids really want to learn how to read. They're really eager for it, and I think that it makes more sense to do
Right.
to do a reading assessment at that point. But then again, teachers then have to have the knowledge about not just the time, but the knowledge. Like, what do we do once we get this information? They have to learn how to look at the children and think about what do I do next.
And it sounds like you feel it's less of a climate now for people to...
I think so. I think that there's not time. They're being given too many mandates about what they have to do. They don't have the... It's too stressful. It's much too stressful, and that has to get handed down to the children and to the parents, and all that, but particularly for the teachers.
Yeah. Any last thoughts?
I mean, as I said, I was very much anti this when it came out, and I did see something really good come out of it, and I wish that it would get looked at as the role of assessment would be revisited in a more thoughtful way.
That's a nice closing thought. Thank you.